Hello everyone. Well, if you are intelligent and good looking enough to have watched some of my other videos, you will by now be ready to present. You know how to look and sound good on camera, and you've sent your calendar invitations. Your audience is ready to go. They're looking forward to your presentation. So the next question is, how do you engage people, right? How do you get their attention? And then of course, how do you keep their attention throughout the whole of your presentation? There are lots of different ways of thinking about this, but one surefire way of getting people's attention is to make sure that you've got a hook at the beginning of your presentation, or as close to the beginning as possible. If you've read my book, my award-winning book, you'll know there's a whole chapter on creating a hook in that book. And a hook, basically, the idea of this is that you have to understand, I think, when people are coming to your presentation, when they're firing up Zoom or Skype or WebEx or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is, they're not necessarily ready to listen to you yet. Their minds aren't just empty spaces waiting for your information. They're full of stuff. They'll be thinking about the meeting they've just finished with somebody else, or maybe their child is acting up a bit, or they're worried about what they're going to make for lunch. They're feeling a bit hungry. Our audiences are not just empty heads waiting for our presentation. Their heads are full of stuff already. So it's your job as a presenter to clear a bit of space in people's heads, to help them give you mental permission for your message to get to them. And having a hook, something right at the start of your presentation, is a great way of doing that. There are lots of different hooks you can use. I've used two in this presentation. So right at the start, I said something a bit amusing. That's quite a nice way of having a hook because people smile a bit. And then straight after that, what I did was I went into a problem. I said, how can you engage people and keep people engaged? And talking in terms of problems is a great way of getting people's attention right at the start of a presentation. When I say problems, I don't mean you have to be depressing about this. You don't have to take the tone of a presentation down, and they don't have to necessarily be negative. But if you can identify a problem that your audience is all facing or thinking about or dealing with at the moment, and bring that into the open, discuss that right at the start, it's usually a pretty guaranteed way of getting an audience's attention. So if you're presenting to a board, think about what problems are they facing and how does your presentation address those problems, and go for the problem first. Because of course, people who can articulate problems really clearly in ways that make sense to their audience, by definition, if you can do that, you've probably got the solution or some solution to that. So people sort of lean forwards, they're ready to hear more. If you do the opposite and just give people information, it's very, very easy to tune out. So for example, if I started a presentation and I said, hello everybody, thanks for coming to my presentation. I'm just going to give you an update on what we did on Monday, and then I'm going to talk about how the project was going on Tuesday, and then I want to tell you about what we did on Wednesday. Well, it's really difficult to be engaged with that kind of presenter because it's just a list of information. And human beings, we don't care about information. We care about what information means to us. So a different kind of presenter would say something like, hi everybody, thanks for coming to my presentation. Look, we all suffered from a problem on Monday. It was quite serious. It really set us back, and it meant that we couldn't get the project finished by Wednesday as we should have done. So I need to spend a bit of time just going into that problem, and let's look at some actions we can take to stop it happening next Monday. Well, that's a much better start to a presentation. It's not wildly different, but by the time you've mentioned that problem, of course, people's ears prick up a bit. What is that problem? What are you going to say about it? Have you got some interesting ideas? And you'll get people more engaged at the beginning of your presentation. Now this, of course, has given you the key, the clue to how you then keep people engaged, because what you want to do throughout the rest of your presentation is not allow people to be passive observers of your presentation as much as possible. So you might decide in a 15-minute presentation that you're going to throw this problem back at people a little bit. And I think really certainly try not to go more than 10 minutes without your audience being involved in some way. And spend a bit of time, whatever software you use. I'm trying to keep this advice generic to all software as much as possible, but there'll be lots of audience engagement tools in the software you're using. You might have voting panels, you might have a chat bar, you might have little breakout rooms, virtual breakout rooms where you can send people. Try and get familiar with all of those tools and use them. And I would recommend, as a rule of thumb, try at least every 10 minutes to do something where your audience are engaging. Now, on its most simple level, you can ask people questions about your presentation. So 6 or 7 minutes in, you can say, so I think this is the way we should go. Samantha, what do you think? right? And you unmute Samantha and let her talk. Doing that, by the way, keeps people awake a bit. Try to avoid just saying, has anybody got any questions? Because you get a bit of an awkward pause. And also, if you've got quite a few people in on a team presentation, sometimes it can be a bit chaotic. By identifying people individually, it keeps people slightly on their toes. Nobody in the team knows who's going to be asked next. But also it brings people in, keeps them a little bit engaged. That's a very basic way of doing it. But you can also have votes, right? You can stop every 3 or 4 minutes and say, I think this is what we should do. How many people agree with me? Just click on the thumbs up button, for example. Another thing you can do throughout your presentation is you can use, if your technology allows this, you can use breakout rooms. So Zoom's very good at this. Other bits of software, other forms of software can do this as well. So you can just give people a question to ponder for a moment and send them into breakout rooms of 2 or 3 people at a time. One of the things I've noticed, and I've been doing a lot of virtual presenting over the last few weeks, is if you let people go off for too long, it tends to fall apart a bit. So I would give people very, very specific questions to focus on and just give them 3 or 4 minutes to chat in 2s and 3s. How are we going to address this particular problem? You don't need perfect answers. Then bring people back and go around the virtual breakout rooms and get the answers. And then you can have a more fulfilled conversation. The other thing that you can do, of course, is you can put up interesting or provocative problems or questions on slides. So you can say to your audience something like, so I'm going to sum up my first section with a question for all of you to think about an answer. Here it is. Click. You click to the slide, they all see the slide that's got a question for them to think about or answer, and then you can say to them, I'm just going to give you all 2 minutes to think about that, write down some answers, and then I'll go round the group and just get some answers from some of you, some ideas from some of you. Again, this is putting them into the role of an active participant rather than a passive observer. And then the last thing that you can do is think more creatively about your use of slides. I want to keep that to a separate video, but one thing I will say in this just a quick tip about slides in this video is try not to put loads of information on your slide. Try and make your slides in a way, leave stuff out of your slides so that as people, if you're using slides, as they're looking at your slides, they've still got to engage with you. So for example, instead of putting up a slide that has a list of obstacles on it, put up a picture of an obstacle, right? Just a photo, and then talk about those obstacles, because you're leaving information out of the slide so people have to stay engaged with your voice. And talking of voice, that's my very last way of keeping people engaged, is you've got to try and keep your voice active and energized as much as possible. In the video I made on looking and sounding good, I recommended sitting near to the front of your chair. It forces you to sit up, and I'm going to repeat that tip again. Don't go like this, don't slump, don't collapse. It's very hard to maintain any vocal energy. Keep a glass of water next to you and try and vary the tone, the excitement, the precision of what you're saying. Try and vary it a little bit, because especially over a 15, 20, 30-minute presentation, that's one of the things that's going to help you stay engaging. I hope some of those ideas have been useful for you. I'll throw up more I won't throw up. I will throw out more ideas. I promise never to throw up on video if I can help it. I'll throw out more ideas as we go through these videos. So if you've got any questions or comments, do let me know. I love hearing from you. Wish you all the best of luck with that. See you soon.